There has been a lot more discussion lately, well, I feel, like about introverts, extroverts, and those that fall in the middle, ambiverts. Now, I really believe that knowing how your child interacts with others and how they best recharge can be really helpful, in relating to them, really in parenting them. Maybe it is just me because I'm so fascinated by it that it feels like that there's more information out there. But I really do feel like people are becoming very aware of these things and knowing these things, especially in parenting realms, how can we do it? So let's look at what an ambivert is and how can we parent an ambivert. Hi, and welcome to Learning Life, and thank you so much for joining me as we look at ambiverts, okay? Those in the middle of the introverted and extroverted spectrum. As they say, ambiverts, somewhere in the middle. Really, what that means is that, you know how to be social, but you also need to recharge, by yourself. It's a big thing. As I said, knowing these are important. I actually have videos on how to parent introverts and how to parent extroverts. The links are down below. And also don't forget that there are many more videos that I have. Thank you so much for watching them. Thank you for your likes and for your comments. And hey, it's not too late to subscribe or tell your friends. You know what? As I look at all of these things, I sort of end up into nerd heaven. Because I'm ooh, that's really interesting, But for me personally, it's I want to be the best parent that I can. And that means actually knowing how my children think and what they need. Because I realize if it was just left to me and what I need, I don't think any of us would be happy. I was also really interested to see that psychologist Hans Eysenck, he actually coined the term ambivert in 1947. Okay. I really feel like it's only been in the past decade or so that, people really are looking at ambivert and how people operate as one. Again, it might just be me, I've just missed out on it, but I don't ever remember when we were looking at teachers' college, at the different types of ways that we re-energize and all of that, we really got, this. I didn't learn about ambiverts then, and there really are misconceptions to what, people are. Everybody seems to think that an extrovert is outgoing and an introvert is just quiet and shy. Look, no, it's more than that. Extroverts can be quiet. They actually just maybe enjoy hanging out with a few people, really getting in-depth conversation. That's what they want, and that's how they energize. And then you can have introverts who really actually enjoy a social setting with one or two close friends and then need to energize afterwards just with some quiet. So we've got to stop looking at it as being shy or outgoing and really looking at it, how do we recharge? What do we need to help us feel better? Traits of an ambivert. If we for the sake of argument, they're somewhere in the middle. They're between an introvert and an extrovert. I really think that they are more a combination of the two. So let's have a look at some of these traits. They're good at listening and communicating, okay? So an ambivert is going to know when to listen, is going to know how to be communicating. And if they've really worked on that are going to do well in that. They can be comfortable in social settings, but they also value that alone time. So it's not one or the other that will energize. Sometimes it will be a social setting, but sometimes it will be alone time. Ambiverts can be empathetic, which is a great thing. And they can also provide balance to social settings, being able to step in and bring what is needed. Do we need to bring it up a little bit or quieten it down? Ambiverts are going to be good at that. Now, you also have a good sense of who to trust. Really like that. And I actually see that in my daughter. But they can be indecisive about whether or not they need social time or alone time. Okay. This can be their tension that they need to find that balance of knowing, oh, I actually need people or I actually need to be like by myself. And so that can be a tension. And if they haven't worked on reading like the cues within themselves, that's actually going to be a struggle. They can be a good leader and a good follower. So this can be great in work situations. They can step up as a leader. They're also great at following. I know many bosses sort of like that. They're also stable, consistent, and dependable. And they can be comfortable, like in many different friend groups. So they're not just having like a limited friend group. They can move around. This is what brings them joy. How can we parent an ambivert? So you feel like your child is an ambivert. They're really just showing that at times they really need like social settings and at times they need to be quiet, So I really think we need to start in that, like to teach like your ambivert child what it means to be one and how like an ambivert might think. Okay. When we have an understanding of who we are and like how we might think and operate, it can be very helpful for us. So as parents, it's up to us to really help our children to understand, no, this is how you think because it's part of your wiring, your DNA. And like, that's a great thing. We're not looking at it as being like, well, that's a problem. No, this is how we think. And when we can understand that, that's so helpful. We want to provide opportunities to work on communication skills. Remember I said like good at listening, good at communicating. Well, we need to practice that. So if we are aware that our child like is an ambivert and maybe they're not being as great like as listening, we can work on that. Or maybe they're not being as great in communicating like what they need. We can work on that. Learn to ask if they need more social time or alone time. And in that, they are learning to work out for themselves if they need more social time or alone time. Okay, like children need to sort of be, we don't want to just assume, right? Like one of my daughters, I always thought that she was an introvert and looking at, that. And then I thought maybe she's just an introvert with FOMO. But no, I really look at her now. And as she has grown older, she is an ambivert, but she is not good at expressing whether or not she needs more social time or alone time. So I'm having to learn to ask, do you need a play date? Or do you need time to yourself? Because, we sort of watch attitudes come out. If she's been social for too long, and she gets snippy at us and can like maybe just be a little bit like mean to her sister and what she says, it's like, you need alone time and just, but asking her about it and helping her to process that. Or if she's been alone too long, be going, hey, do you really need like that play date to build her up and to maybe get her out of a slump that she's not sure that she's in or how she can get out of it. And after a social event, you will need to provide opportunities for our ambivert child to like just have that alone time for recharging. Okay, again, like using my daughter as an example, we can have several social events and then we just need to be like, you need to have a really quiet day. And I encourage you to just have some alone time without your sister to like just recharge because otherwise she will just keep going. And it does not bring peace to our house when she is like overstimulated in that and she needs to recharge. Again, she is learning. She is learning how to express when she needs it, but she's still learning and she still needs those opportunities for her to be able to see what she needs. You also need to be aware when your child might need to stay home from an activity or, leave a party because they need quiet and alone time. It really can happen at any moment. Okay, so maybe you're like planning to go out and you're all there and then it'll be like, you're just watching how they're acting and thinking they're not going to do well. Like it's going to just be really stressful like for me as a parent, so maybe we just need to stay at home or like they're at a party and you just see, you're like, we might need to leave. It really can happen at any moment. Look, I know that as an introvert, especially if I sort of have to go to a social thing that I don't really want. So I'm sort of hyper aware on myself. And so I am sort of more hyper aware for my daughter who is that ambivert that she needs that time. Allow time to process emotions or questions, okay? Sitting down, communicating that. I am big that our children from a young age need to be able to name emotions and how it makes them feel. They have questions, to be able to address and answer that because that is only going to be beneficial for them in knowing how they think and how they operate and what those feelings and emotions mean for them. And I think we really need to teach like our ambivert children how to manage crowds and activities when they start to feel overstimulated. Okay? I know what I'm like. But, as an adult, I'm like, oh, I can just step outside. You'll often find me in the kitchen, washing dishes because I just need the quiet. So if your child is feeling and you're seeing these things, oh, we're feeling overstimulated, what can we do? Is it maybe go to the bathroom and take some deep breaths? Is it maybe step outside? Is it maybe coming and finding mom and dad and just saying, I need to go? Okay, so when we can show them all of these things, well, really, it's only going to help us to parent ambivert children because we want them to grow in who they are. And we still want to be us, of course, as who we are, whether we're an ambivert, introvert, extrovert, but this way it'll bring just a great peace to your house if you can all operate in who you are and have that beautiful give and take and balance. How can you parent as an ambivert or an introvert or an extrovert? Well, sometimes I think it might be easier to be an ambivert parent, but that's just me. No science involved in that at all. Because I feel as an introvert, there are so many times I have to put myself out there and then it just becomes draining and I can get snappy. If you're an extrovert, needing to be in tune that maybe quiet time is needed when you're still no, I want to go and be with people because that'll energize me. And I'm really not liking the fact that my child needs to stay at home. So we've got this. I somehow feel maybe as an ambivert, if you're more in tune of what you're needed, then you're able to see, what your children need. So I don't know. Again, no science involved, but as I said, I actually have one daughter who is a definite extrovert, but she's more of a quieter one. She loves to have that time with friends and that real connection. She's deep. She's like a father. And the other who is an ambivert, as a small child, she was more introverted, but now that full-blown ambivert. You know what? I have to help them learn when enough is enough, when they need alone time, or social time. And I have to help them know how to communicate thoughts and feelings. That is part of the reason why I've really sort of researched a lot of this, because as an introvert, my natural bent is to do this. But I can't force them to fit into my box just because of how it feels. It is hard sometimes, but you know what? I let them know when I feel overstimulated. I'm like, hey girls, mommy is just done. I need to go and have some quiet time. So that means please leave me alone. Don't come in and ask me how I'm doing. And please don't come in every 5 to 10 minutes just needing a cuddle because I need alone time. And I will just lie there in the quiet, just nobody's touching me. And nobody's talking to me, okay? And so, when we understand that, for my husband, it's more let's do more social things. And it's great. We're so very different, I'm more of a homebody. But you know what? We get out there and we do it. And so, let's work with our kids on this to understand who they are, how they think, letting them know how you think and feel and how you recharge. Because when we have that understanding, then we've got that good give and take and we've got some great balance. Famous ambiverts. I thought this would be fun. I was sort of looking up who are some famous ambiverts? Because you really get long lists of introverts and extroverts. And so these 5 people kept coming up time and time again. And it's interesting. They're all famous people. Of course, really, they're famous ambiverts. And you sort of look at how often they were in these social settings, but to then understand, oh, they actually needed that quiet too. So John Lennon, Princess Diana, Marilyn Monroe, Eleanor Roosevelt, and Johnny Depp. I'm ooh, I couldn't imagine being in the spotlight all the time, because I need more of that quiet. But you know what? There are great role models out there. I'm not saying that these ones are all great role models, but you know what? For our children to understand, oh, here is somebody who is an ambivert, that this is how they dealt with it, is very helpful for them. Well, thank you so much for watching today, for being part of this Learning Life. And if you have any questions or comments, feel free to just drop them down below. And if you want to be part of this Learning Life community and help get these videos out, you can. You can join us as a champion, and you can do that through patreon.com or my website, LearningThis.Life.